Hey everybody, welcome back. 48.14, we got over that 4,800. That's a big deal. I'm happy about it. You kind of see the slope. Let's put in the most basic of indicators right there. Get rid of the RSI. Back over the 12, the 22. 55 is curling up. I use a 12, a 22, and a 55. You should use whatever you're comfortable with. Drop this down to the hourly, and we have a ton to go over. This is going to be a packed video. I'm going to keep it short and sweet because after hours was extremely active, and there's things that people need to know about after hours, considering why iRobot's cut in half, why SMCI is hitting all-time highs, how that's going to play out tomorrow, and what you should do about it. So we got a lot to cover, and I'm going to pack it all in because this is going out late because I was trading after hours pretty aggressively, just positioning for tomorrow. But if you see right here that 47.60 doesn't get any cleaner, right? You know where your level is. If we drop the most simplest of indicators, there's private clouds right here. If you do follow me on TradingView, I think I have this in a script on there. You can just pick it up. So a bunch of people ask about this. I'm not trying to be mysterious with it. I'm just not going to get into it all. But you can see right here how you're starting to flip on the ES. It's starting to turn green. That's exactly what you want. Green for go, yellow for, maybe we just have caution, right? Not rocket science, how I color-coded them. So you can see you're just building a little bit of a flag in here. There are worse things than this today. So we can see what happened there. Taiwan Semi, we have to go after that beautiful earnings report and explain why it's so powerful. It's really a very powerful report. You can just see the NQ, the NASDAQ. Look, we turned green here. Green is for go. Yellow is for maybe be a little cautious, right? So we're lifting and we're hitting. I wonder what the Qs look like. Don't worry about it. They're at all-time highs. We don't even have to look. And then you have the Russell down here. It's kind of one of these kids doing its own thing, can't get out of its own way. Now, one of the things that I spent a lot of time on yesterday and what we're going to do very quickly is I just want to go through these in regards to this on just the basic indicators, the 12, the 22, and the 55. Let's get rid of the RSI, and let's just deal with the facts. You have a 12-22 cross here. I can like the small caps as much as I want. I've been talking about small caps since mid-December. How's that going for me? It was going pretty good until we got to the year where they were supposed to rally, and now they're falling apart, right? So I had a really great trade when the dollar was dropping. We're going to talk about the dollar here. When we had the bond market rallying, I was a genius in the small cap market. I'm no longer a genius, right? Okay. It's not me, it's the market, right? All right. 12-22 cross. You got to be careful here. You want to hold the 55. You start looking at the most basic of indicators again. Let's talk about this. This is just in the newsletter. If you don't get the newsletter, free version, link in description, make sure you get it. There's a lot of information in there packed. I think tomorrow's is all on the save trade where we did puts and calls today, and I'll walk you through that. But 55, and now we're over the 55. I don't want to be over the 55. It's not where I want to be for equity markets. You need to be aware of this. You just need to be where you are. Look at what's going on here with the 10-year in yield and how it's rising, right? Even though there were great trades off this when they started buying today. I've got a 12-22 cross. I use a 12, a 22, and a 55. You should use what you're comfortable with. I don't really use them for the moving averages, but we're imploding here. I get why we're imploding on the VIX. I mean, there's a lot going on out there with what we're watching in the Red Sea. You know, we're all experts on the Middle East right now, but we always tend to go out, and sometimes we should just dial in and just look at what's going on. We're just going to start with Taiwan Semi tonight. Just start right here. Why is this up so much? Well, yesterday we talked about this and to watch this first thing in the morning. And that's why I said all these videos are connected, right? I try to connect them so that you have actionable information for the next deal. And then Saturday's video is the long week video to prep you for the week. And then these videos just like are filler to get you ready and get you going. So we talked about Taiwan Semi, said you have to watch this. They were looking for 18% growth. They came in at 24% growth. We had trades in this. We did exceptionally well with obviously our semiconductor trades today. This is the takeaway that most people are not getting. So when you start looking at like Lam Research, you start looking at all these other semiconductor capital equipment manufacturers, and why are they rallying? They're rallying because Taiwan Semi came out and said that China is building 3 to 4 new foundries to deal with advanced chips. So US says we're not giving them to you. China just says, okay, and we're building our own facilities. You can do a lot of things, guys, when you have unlimited funds. Okay, and that's why these names are rallying. I would suggest, and besides that you have them building 3 new plants in Taiwan, Arizona, Germany, supposedly there's another one in Israel. When you really go through that report, which nobody really does, and you see the build out, semiconductor capital equipment manufacturers are going to be huge. Speaking of huge, this evening, SMCI, this chart looked disgusting. Would anybody want to buy this chart? You got to the top and then it was falling apart. But They were supposed to come out with earnings January 30th. They pre-announced, okay? Stocks trading up after hours right around that 350 level. Absolute monster. Let's take a look at this after hours. So this was actually what I was doing, so I apologize for being late, but I was trading this after hours. It wasn't really much to do. I was trading this and the SOX, SOXL, and then obviously some of the other names associated with it, but just straight up, just a straight rip. Remember guys, we went through this before. I'll just walk everybody through this. If you just go to this, when you have these rips and you drop an anchored VWAP, work with me, not against me. Third time's the charm. So you can see how you got right down to that anchored VWAP. You mark an anchored VWAP on the first bar. You can actually make sure that you're doing that on the first bar on the 1 minute. And then when it gets near there, let's get the 55 off so that you're not confused. I know I get confused easily too. So you can see how you just rode that, right? So you had net buyers. So you just know when it gets there, you're good. You can start looking at trying to pick it off and then figure out where your stop is. You always have to have a stop. And then you just got to all-time highs, pretty darn close to it there. And I would expect everyone and their sister that works at an investment bank tomorrow to come out and say they knew this was coming, and they're going to raise their target prices and talk about why it's a buy. And then, of course, you have to realize that this is going to drive the SOX even higher tomorrow, and this is going to increase demand for AMD. This is going to increase demand for NVIDIA, right? This is going to continue over and over again. Sometimes we get really caught up in the big trade and we're not looking at the little trade. Semiconductors, AI, this is not going away. You're in the first inning of this. The next one is probably going to do something very similar to this. You're going to want to watch this AVGO. We had a bunch of people in the room that were trading this one today. This was not on my radar, but I would expect this to be set. I mean, this is basically, it's called the slingshot, this whole pattern right here. So this is setting up the push. There's really very little question about it. This semiconductor trade, this is not over. This is just beginning. It is very hard. I want to be really clear about this statement so people get this, right? And if people disagree with me, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but in this sense, you're just wrong. When this happens and you start coming out and you start increasing your earnings estimates and you start pre-announcing good, this is not a one-time thing. These types of companies, they can book their revenues whenever they want, right? People say, oh, you can't do that. Yeah, you can, right? They have accountants that will actually make sure that they're hitting their numbers. I know, but believe me, it happens. So they don't have to do this, right? They could push orders forward. They can pull them back. If you ask anybody that's in any industry, do they try to make sure that they have consistent earnings in their publicly traded company? The answer is going to be yes. The fact that they're doing this is going to make investment banks realize that they could even be sandbagging this number. Okay, so they're going to all go through their numbers and they're all going to adjust. This should not really be that big of a surprise considering what you're saying with the NVIDIA chips and the AMD chips and what's coming out of Taiwan Semi. This is huge news for the sector and it's huge news for the NASDAQ. If you take a look today, you see the NQ or the NASDAQ on the Qs hitting all-time highs. After hours, it was even higher. Okay, you're seeing the SOX up after hours. This is not going to go away. This is your trade. Okay, it is real simple what your names are that you're focused on. NVIDIA, we've been swing trading since down here at 501. We've been talking about it for weeks. AMD has been on fire since she came out here and said she saw this market double what you're supposed to see, right? This is one of those times where I get so adamant about telling you to cull your feed on who you're watching on Twitter and who you're watching on YouTube. And even if you find out that I'm interfering with your trading, you should not watch these videos, because if you truly understand what's going on right now, right? I saw one situation, I'm going to walk through it today, where people got absolutely destroyed by paying attention to people that have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. And here's where it gets interesting. If you understand all this and you connect all these dots, you're not going to doubt, right? I'm not going to break out the stool for obvious reasons. I just don't have the time. When you understand the fundamentals of how this stuff works, right? This is just, it's real simple. Earnings are going to keep going higher. If earnings keep going higher, you can argue PE all you want. Nobody cares. No one cares. They just don't. So understand that and understand that these kinds of names, they're going to push. Are you going to have pullbacks? Yeah. They're called buying opportunities, right? And they've continued to be. Speaking of that, when you understand this stuff, you'll realize why Bitcoin is dropping. We've been talking about this since those ETFs come out. Those ETFs were nothing but a money grab. I've been telling people to go and read those prospectus. This is exactly what's happening, and look what's going on here. Now, while this is playing out, you have the semiconductor trade. Here's the easiest trade out there, and I've been saying this for some time, to be shorting these names. We've been short these names in the community for a period of time. You know, I'm not going to pull out all the timestamps tonight. There's a couple I really want to go over so you guys can see some things. But you're breaking the 55 here. I mean, that's not good. We can all agree with that. 12, 22 cross, 55 break, below 50 on the RSI. I mean, what are you doing? What are you waiting for? a wing and a prayer? Like, how can you look at that and think that that's going to go any higher? Right? So I'm trying to pack it all in tonight, guys, because I know this is late, but tomorrow's a big day. I wonder what else is sitting at the 55. So we have the 17 and a half calls on, or 17 and a half puts on this. Been a long day, guys. So when you start to see things like this, it's pretty glaring, right? I think it's absolutely glaring, as someone likes to say. So I don't know how you could be looking at this. These were just outright shorts today. And these are certainly things that we're going to continue to short. We've done exceptionally well with them. And if you're on these and you think that Bitcoin's going to go up because these ETFs, I would tell you to start reading the prospectuses about how these things are playing out. But to me, these are very simple ideas that I'm presenting. Long stocks that are doing good and have good earnings and are raising guidance. Short stocks that now have business models that are basically obsolete, in my opinion. And I know I'm going to get comments on it, but believe me, these things are not going to do anywhere near what people think they're going to do in the short time. And someone can explain to me why I need a Coinbase account. Someone can explain it to me. Probably to go buy another NFT because they do so well, right? So if you sit here and take a look at Microsoft, you're hitting all-time highs. Maybe start looking at what's going on there. Start looking at what's happening with Apple, and you can see what's going on there. Back over the 55. I missed this today. A bunch of people in the room caught it. I was too busy with other trades. Other things that I think are of huge interest that we should go over is Save. And I want to just walk through this here. So today I did a trade, and I want to walk through this trade so that you understand it. I'll get rid of the vol because I didn't even look at the volume. So I came in long stock. We pulled money out of it once, and we made money on the pulling out. We pulled it out twice, actually. I made money on the pulling out. When I started to break here, so I'm long stock, but I'm still down in the trade. Even with the two pull times we pulled out, I'm still probably down in the trade at this point, right? So I'm watching this, and I have a bear flag. The moment that that bear flag breaks, this is what you have to do, guys. You have to be objective about your trades. This is really important, and you're probably going to want to watch this part again, and you're going to want to watch the next part of the next trade too. When you see this, and you know you're wrong here, right? There's no one's going to tell me that this looks good and I got to get in right now, right? All right, I know fundamentally that this company's trading at 50 cents on the dollar. This does not make sense to me that I'm sitting here. It doesn't matter that it doesn't make sense. What matters is I'm bleeding from every orifice. So I need to do something about it, right? So what do? I just marry puts to it right here, to the entire position. And I'm going to type words, and then I'm going to go through this on Saturday. I delta hedge, work with me, guys. It's been a long day. I delta hedge the position, which means if you're long 1,000 shares, right, and the puts that I buy were the 550s, if the delta is 50, then I'm buying 20 puts. I'm delta hedging the whole thing out, okay? I'm not just buying 10 puts against my 1,000 shares because the delta's 50, right? I'll go through this on Saturday if people are interested. Comment below on it. I'm sure I'm gonna get tons of comments on it. All right, so let's just say that you have 1,000 shares and you marry the puts to it. So what starts to happen as it drops? You get net short. Now, let me show you this. Let me see if I can find this really quickly. This is when we had the 105 calls overnight. It wasn't an official alert because there was too much risk in it, but I was just telling people what I did. I did exceptionally well with them. I paid 2. I think I sold them for 6.5. See if I can find these other trades. Tried to short Apple, didn't work. Lost 15 cents. Bought more AMD, had a great day with AMD. PayPal didn't work at first. Where is this? Stay with me, guys. And I appreciate that I get to do these unedited because it saves me an inordinate amount of time, especially this evening, and I can get a ton out. Okay, AT bought, that's me, AT. Bought Safe Puts 550s for 20 cents options. That's the alert. Okay, so that's us getting in that trade. Now, what I'm doing is I'm putting options out there the whole time. And what we're seeing is this hit the tape. Spirit downgraded to sell from Citigroup. So now I'm thinking that Citigroup knows something. So I sold a bunch of them. I bought a bunch of them because I had a bunch of Save stock because it's trading at 50 cents on the dollar. Now, and then I'm selling them at 50, and I'm putting some out there at 50, okay? So what I'm doing, while I'm doing this, watching the wicks, and I'm watching what's happening, right? Sold more Safe Puts, I was up 100%. But, and this is the swing trade in the video, we paid 501, 575 was our swing, so we trimmed. All right, let's go to this because this will be more helpful until we get to the next part of the trade. So I'm delta hedged out, so I'm trimming on the way down, right? And then this drops. When this drop happens, why is this important? Well, I'm delta hedged. So I'm actually net short at this point, meaning because the delta is going to increase, right? My short exposure is going to increase as this drops. So I'm pulling money out here, and I was already up like 100% on the puts here. So you can kind of figure out how I did when all this was going on. I closed the puts, and when we close The puts, I noticed something on a chart and I'm net long the stock. But now the fives, I'm looking at the fives and they're trading at like 50 cents on the dollar. And to me, I'm looking at this trade and they're talking about restructuring. Well, if you're going to restructure, they're thinking you're going to restructure the company. If you read that note, they said they were going to restructure the company. They didn't restructure the company, they restructured the debt. And people don't even know this yet. They're going to figure it out tomorrow, I think. If you restructure the company, here's where the rub comes in. Remember this. If you restructure the company, you could take the debt and convert it to equity. Right? They could force that. That means your $12 book, which I think is what the book value is, or $10 book, $11 book, all of a sudden gets cut in half or a third, and now it's $3 book because all the debt gets converted to equity. That's why people are like, oh, this thing's toast, El Tosto, right? That's not what happens. Rips higher. Why? Why does this move? Watch this trade. Watch this. This is, you might want to watch this a couple times. There's a lot in here. What we're watching, see this flip right here? Okay, that happened at 1 o'clock on the 9 EMA. I don't want to wait for that because I'm waiting to see if we're going to get news. So all I did was go here and say, okay, they're 50 cents. You know, they're heroes or zeros. You might want to take a look at them, and we put them on. So I'm net short on the trade on the way down, flips this whole way down. As this is dropping, my puts aren't even dropping because there's no intrinsic value to them, meaning I'm already out of the money. So really all I did was buy time and volatility. Well, the volatility is going up, so my puts aren't going to drop, and the time in the past 45 minutes didn't change. So I'm not really losing anything, right? And then they go up, and then they become worth $1. And I just want to show you the timestamp since we did it. And there's the trim, but and I don't have time to edit all this. So you can see right here, 50 cents. And then we trimmed when we were up 40%. And then when we were up 100%, we moved to the break even. And then I had a BA trade that we were up like $7 on today. All right. So I took a losing trade. And the part of it was I didn't tie my ego to the trade and just say, I'm right. What's the difference? And why am I spending time on this? Because if I tied my ego to it and then I broke even at the end of the day and did nothing, my brain would then say, all I have to do with my losers is hold them because they come back. That's not what you do. You look at it objectively and you figure out how you can protect yourself. Maybe if you don't know options, you just cut the trade. You're out, right? And then you look for another spot. Even if you cut it here objectively and found another spot, that would have been another way to look at it. I would watch this name tomorrow. I think it's going to be exceptionally busy. If you're interested in this stuff, the delta hedging and all of that, just drop comments and I'm more than happy to go over it. I think it's a really important concept for people to get and they can protect themselves. And there's a ton to go over tonight. I still want to go through this bond trade, but tomorrow, be aware, IRBT blew up tonight. EU basically came out and said no mas. All of a sudden, we do not want them to own iRobot. And by them, we mean Amazon. So let's think about this. We don't want them to own the vacuum cleaner company. They already have Alexa. They're already listening to us. Where are they going to get us? Through the vacuum cleaner? So it's kind of silly, but here we are. This seems like a huge move to the downside. I don't know, man. I mean, should you really go back to decade lows? I think the arbitrage or people are just have had enough with it and they're going to blow it out. I don't know that Amazon doesn't fight this. You know, I don't know. But you're going to open down at like $12, $13. You're going to open down literally to like 2013 prices. It seems kind of insane if you think about it, considering that, you know, when you're at the pandemic, you were in the 20s and now you're here at 14. So I don't know. It seems kind of excessive, to be honest, but you know, we'll see what happens with it. One last thing I really want to hammer home for people. I hammered it home yesterday, and people keep saying to follow up on things, and I think it is a really good idea. Let's find this chart right in here because this will make it much clearer. So one of the things I keep trying to get people to understand is this bond trade and understand exactly how the bond trade works. I think that this couldn't have been more obvious today. And I just thought it made a lot of sense to go through it. So there were two bond auctions today for those that don't know. All right, so here we see yield spike on the bond auction. What happens when yield spikes? Okay, when yield spikes, hit this button 3 times today. It's going to have to work with it. Why are you not working? There it goes. There we go. So yield spikes here. When yield spikes, what happens? When yield spikes right here, okay, what happens with the S&P? S&P does what? Drops. S&P drops. Doesn't get any closer. That's a bond auction right there. Okay, this is the bond auction. What happened? Okay, you can say it. Doesn't really get any cleaner, right, guys? It's pretty clean. All right, what happened at 1 o'clock today? The tips auction. Where was the low on the market today? Right after the tips auction. All right, so the low on the market today was the tips auction. Now, what you could do with this information, besides make money by trading zero-dated options, what people like to do, it's what all the kids are doing these days. If you go out there and do that, great. If that's what you want to do, you can just mark them off. I mean, it's literally the easiest trade in the world. I showed you this trade yesterday. Here it is again. It's the same exact trade. Here it is again. It was twice. I don't know why you give me such a hard time tonight with the clicking. There we go. So you can see it twice. There's the trade. All right. So there's the same trade twice. This is what else you could do with it. See, I'm trying to add things so that you know. So like, let's say you know that this is where the bond auction is and you know that this may be the low. You don't know if we're going to go sideways and bleed out with those silly zero-dated options that people love. But I mean, it's just kind of do futures if you want to do it. But what you can do with it is this. If you know that, watch this. If you take AMD and then you take NVIDIA, take Taiwan Semi, it doesn't really matter what other names you take. You can put anything in here. Put Microsoft in here as well. All right. And then just go to a 1-minute chart on these names. Okay. And then just go look at 1 o'clock and just say, geez, I wonder what happened around 1 o'clock today. All right. And then you can literally go there and say, well, I just have Microsoft in there, but I'm going to show you all these names. I don't know really what happened there. Hold on. There's NVIDIA. And that's how it's pronounced. It's pronounced NVIDIA. So what happened in here right around 1 o'clock? You think that's a coincidence that all these names right after the bond auction, right after this thing completely leveled off? Let's just drop the 10-year in here again. So there's the 10-year right there in purple, and you can see what happened. Right? What happened when this started dropping off? Everything bottoms, and then what starts to happen? All these names lift. If you do this, what you can also do, let's just say you go to 1 o'clock, you can also say, okay, not only are we lifting right through here when that starts to happen, but which ones we're outperforming, right? Get rid of the pre and the post data. You can actually go through it and say which names are outperforming. Right? You can actually find those names and go and see where the money flow is going. That's a very important distinction, and all that happens because you know when you're supposed to be looking for this and what you're supposed to be looking for. That's it.